be an option. The cost associated with that is all we're going to charge is the cost of the class, what it costs us to provide it, and it's about $300 per student. So that includes the books, all the time, all the supplies within the class, that type of thing. It doesn't include the testing fees. But what that would definitely allow your community to do is to have, you know, that 24/7 reliable coverage. If you had 10 good dedicated first responders, in addition to your 3 dedicated EMS providers or EMTs that are here, in theory, you should be able to cover that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with two providers.
Okay, so that was going to be my question, was how many it would take to get back up to that transportation.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't allow us, still wouldn't allow us to transport because they're EMRs.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a difference. So the amount of hours, I forgot to answer that on the difference is an EMR class is 52 hours. An EMT class is 160 hours. Advanced is an additional 100, well, about 200 hours. And so you can see that
They need advanced to do the transport?
No, just EMT. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're hoping is there could be a gateway into like, hey, I kind of like this. I'm going to go this direction. And when we offered that EMT class in that way, that we would be able to, they would hopefully, if they're interested, you know, move into that area.
So that you need like 12 to 15 EMTs working to be transported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In theory, I mean, you have somebody like Kathy here at best. I mean, look, I'll speak of Kathy. I mean, heavens to Betsy. This woman has, you know, given more to EMS in her career than you probably take those 12 individuals, you know, in that period of time. The amount of actual time she's been on call. When I was used to do the stats, I mean, thousands and thousands of hours a year that were, you know, volunteered to the system. Of course, as you all know, as I'm sure you've worked through issues within your own community with volunteerism and people, you know, we can't afford to do the things we used to do. We just can't afford it. We, you know, as volunteers, we have to work and make money in order to buy things in houses and stuff. Whereas in many years ago, of course, that was a little bit easier to do. In addition to, we do have a different group of individuals that we're trying to, you know, deal that we have to, it all work differently, and they value their time in different ways. So those are some of those things. But yeah, if approximately 12 persons is what you need to keep the ambulance staffed 24/7. EMRs could keep it just as a first response. EMTs, you know, could be that first transport leg, and then advanced. You would, if we could get back to that, we would need, you know, one of those on every shift, so to cover that. So kind of half and half, 6/6 could do it, but that's a pretty tight schedule still.
Oops, I have a couple of questions. Yeah. We have a sheriff's office base station in our house business.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. So I hear a lot of the calls, and I help dispatch, especially the fire, but if they need help finding and whatnot. But is it going to be similar to what the SAL has?
Yes.
Okay, and so are they EMTs or are they first responders?
So the actual license or they are designated as first responders. That is a non-transport ambulance that they have in LaSalle.
So then, do they go in an ambulance? Like
Mhm.
with these, if we have EMRs here, they can still drive the ambulance, they can still go on scene,
Yes.
they just can't transport,
Correct.
even without an EMT on board.
Yes, if you had first responders, which we don't right now, if we could get 10 of them, yes, if we had those, then 2 first responders could take the ambulance
And grab
to
it.
the scene, treat that patient, and take care of them until,
Communicate
yep,
and stuff.
until Blanding gets here to transport. With that, it sounds kind of like a downgrade, but I like I talked to the mayor and Erin about it. Right now, you have very limited coverage because these guys are just kind of like, you can only do so much with 3 people. If you had 12 first responders, you would be doing significant service to the community over where we are today. Like, that's really truly what I want to do, is what can we do to provide you guys 24/7 coverage? And that would be more than you have today. And I don't think a lot of people understand that because like it just happens. The EMS is taken for granted all the time. And so it just happens. People just happen to show up and sometimes, they're not on call and they just happen to be able to come. But all those things, considered, I think that if you look at the picture, kind of big and globally, yes, we all want, I want everyone to have their own ambulance in every community. But I think you also have to start to value, like you're a community of 250 people, like what kind of people, what population do we have? What time do people have to give to that? And then the fact, it's an undeniable fact. We've had 15 ambulance runs here so far this year. So we don't devalue how important those 14, 15 are, but.
Well, in the past, they did the whole south section, but Montezuma Creek's covering that now.
Correct.
So the calls will be considerably shrunk.
Yeah.
So will this ambulance still go out and waiting for Montezuma Creek? Or will they still just be limited just to Bluff?
That is to answer your question, the agreement we have, we are in the process of rewriting with Montezuma Creek or UNHS and currently they are covering that area for us. So from anything south of the river is being covered by UNHS, and then everything, which is still a humongous area, of course, all the way to Mexican Hat, and then up to bottom of White Mesa Hill was traditionally Bluff. So yes, to answer your question, Montezuma Creek is covering that small White Rocks community and that piece of the highway out there. It just doesn't make sense to send landing out there when they're so much closer.
No, but these guys would not go? Would they go or would they not go?
They have asked, UNHS has asked that they would go still. And so Price is supposed to be dispatching them to that area still. And then they would go as first responders. And then, yes, Montezuma Creek will come trapping.
So Blanding and Bluff get paged for Bluff.
Mm-hmm.
And Bluff and Montezuma Creek get paged for
that area.
All the south.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we only went
people here. There's wrecks between here and Montezuma, between here and Mexican Hat and north, but no people.
There's cows. More cows than people.
Well, not bad after it got fenced. That part got fenced. It's this way. They hit a horse last night. Or was it the night before? Was it the night before? Anyway, they hit a horse in the dark and everybody was okay. But yeah, that way, lots of horses and cows.
Yeah.
And this way too, they get south on the roads.
Yeah.
They don't take care of the cattle guards.
What are your current incentives for EMRs?
So the EMRs right now, currently as it sits, are the same as EMTs. I don't foresee that changing right now, but it might. So I don't want to get held right to the standard. But I would say between $2.50 and $3.33 an hour to be on call. So that EMR, because we do want to have an incentive to move you forward into this process. So yeah, $20 to $40 a day, depending on your certification level.
If
And
you
that-
get enough to set up a schedule.
That right now, that's what these guys do. So if only Kathy was on, we pay, our EMT level, which is $40 for a 12-hour shift. Comes out to like $3.33 an hour. And then in addition to that, any hours that they go out on the truck, they're compensated. I want to say our EMR started around $16 an hour and then builds up from there. So I think that part of it is usually not why somebody's getting 100% into this, but it's definitely a component. Many an EMT have bought a new vehicle, or a side-by-side, or something fun with their EMS money.
We tried to give basically a scholarship kind of thing for training and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering what your
Awesome.
Any other questions from the council? What happens, this happens every, decade. There's a really big catastrophe on the road. And, at those times, all kinds of ambulances go there. And so ours could go, but not transport. I mean, what happens if you don't have, you need more transport?
There are provisions in extreme cases, which catastrophes fit into, that we can take the rules and we don't throw them out the window, we just set them aside. So in extreme cases, we were at, my wife Stacy and I were having a conversation on the way here about the EMR class and well, if I took that class, could I just respond on calls with you? And I said, well, we'd have to get this waiver through the state. And so there are ways to go, not around, or there are ways to go like from point A to point B, but there's always a restriction or there's some other part of that rule. So for instance, if we had myself as a paramedic and an EMR on, I still can't legally transport in the state of Utah, no matter what ambulance I'm on, because the way that the law is written. However, under a situation of a catastrophe or an MCI type of deal, are we going to transport? Absolutely. Like, we need to get everybody where they need to go. And we're going to set those rules aside, and then we're going to deal with the consequences, if any, later, under that one incident type of situation. But to say that we're going to allow ourselves to circumvent the rules just for convenience, we are not going to do that.
I have one more question.
You can ask all the questions.
Okay, so you had a program with Luanne, or maybe it was before you were on, where they were on call within 5 minutes of the station and could dispatch. So are you still doing it? It seemed like that gave them a little more per hour.
So
Or is that still in existence?
we still have what is considered, it's an industry standard to respond at in rural EMS on a paid call. These are part-time. Everybody's a part-time employee. We don't have any volunteers. Nobody works for free. So we expect, unofficially in air quotes, that you will respond to the ambulance and be ready to roll in 5 minutes or less.
If you're on.
The reason we say unofficially, and this got skewed somewhere, I don't know if it was on Facebook or in a meeting or something somewhere, but this got taken out of context. We have never changed our response time. We've always been 3 to 5 minutes that's the industry standard. So we expect that you're ready to go and ready to respond within 3 to 5 minutes. We did, however, take out the 5 minutes out of our policy. The reason that we did that is it was interpreted by HR and our attorneys that if we were to take that out, that we could allow people to get paid for all the hours that they were on call without being held to the 29 hour per week work rules with the federal government. And so we don't officially have a response time, but the industry standard is that we respond within 5 minutes.
We appreciate that down here, that
Yeah.
there is blending, that there are, and you guys are what, 3,000 people and we're 200.
Right.
So if you take the percentage of the people that help there and compared to here,
Yeah.
I mean, we
Oh,
got quite a
absolutely.
percentage, but
Yes.
so we may or may
No,
not be able to.
And that brings up the point. I mean, and it surely is the point. We look back in history, every rural small community had its own ambulance that was transporting, and we had, for some reason, we were able to staff that. And everybody asked me the same question, well, what changed? And of course, we've talked about a lot of those things that have changed. Volunteerism, people need to work, all these things. We're double income, triple income households now because you can't afford to do it other ways. And so what we're looking at is, when we look at that, one of the other components with that is that we have seen the expectation for what people expect from EMS grow over time. The requirements for the class itself are significant. I mean, if we were to ask Kathy, I've asked her before, I mean, her EMT book when she took was like a pamphlet, compared to if I was to put you through an EMT class now, I mean, it's a 2,000 page textbook. So to say that there's a lot of things that have just changed, of course, as we've evolved from the 70s, when EMS started in Utah to where we are today. And that certainly also bears, thought that those requirements take more time. The requirements, to stay proficient with your skills is one of the things that I struggle with a lot, because if I have a provider that is only on the truck, you know, an average of, if they're on call, say 200, even 200 hours a year, which is a very small number. But out of that, they say they're working in Bluff, and out of those two, if they only go on 2 of those 14 calls, you know, what level of proficiency? And so that's the other thing that we're looking at, is as we try to staff at the highest level we can for transport, and then we support these levels in your community at a very local level that we can give them what they need to help stabilize and do all the things prior to the transporting ambulance arriving. I think that does fix, you know, does the same thing. And truly, I mean, if you think about your 5 minutes, I mean, you should have an ambulance here, you know, within 20, 25 minutes.
Well,
So,
this should be found quickly, at least, you know, during that. Yeah, it seems like if they're not out on something else, they come pretty quick.
Yeah.
But the thing we have besides that 200 people is that we can hold 1,000 people
correct.
in our hotels and campgrounds. We can hold 1,000, but they're not a workforce.
Right. No, and exactly. And that's
So
the
I
other,
suppose you
yeah.
could have people in Blanding that would come and be hired down here or something, but it's 25 minutes, or, you know, if you don't live right here, it also takes a while to get to the.
Right.
So, anyway, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
But that helps to clear up when we're communicating to.
Well, if you have any of your people, I mean, for sure, we are trying to get kind of nailed down. If they're interested in a hybrid version, if that would help somebody, like have them communicate with me or through the city here, and then, or the town, and then they can get me some information, because we're definitely trying to nail down like what this class might look like.
When is the start of that class?
July 8th. Thank you, Erin.
And Jen mentioned last week that, you know, the high schools, Whitehorse, Blanding, you know, if they have some programs to get kids interested or started on
They
that.
do.
Yeah.
It just, my son was in it last year, and it just seemed like there wasn't the best level of communication between our river kids, if that's the, you know, PC term or whatever, and our local EMS team. You know, I mean, there were times where we had 3 kids from Bluff that could have helped out on Bluff runs, but somehow that.
Coordinate that better with the school, like
Yeah.
this was the school, so you have to realize
It's the
there's a
first year.
school,
Yeah.
there's a school district program, and then
Yeah.
there's San Juan County EMS.
Yeah.
And then they let the attorneys start talking, and
Right.
complicated everything.
Right, yeah, well, that's how it
Yeah.
usually is, unfortunately.
Yes. So this year, moving forward, we do have a much more focused
Yeah,
arena. Some of the things, to answer your question, I think it's great. And I had the same problem. We had these energetic, you know, young individuals that wanted to go on calls. And so we wanted to send them out. And then we come to find out that because it's the school district and because they're under the school district's insurance, they can only run on calls
until 4
during
o'clock.
school time. And so there was a lot of
Yeah.
restrictions.
When
Yeah.
they're supposed to be at school. Oh, by the way.
Exactly.
Not
Well,
here on the ambulance.
Exactly. And so it makes it challenging. So the only thing I can say is to let's make sure that, you know, that if they can do that, they're getting some exposure to it, maybe from Blanding side out of school. And then if they can get certified, by all means, like we would love to have them.
I just think, I was just hoping that program wasn't just gonna fizzle out and die, because I really think it's a great
Yeah.
opportunity to
No, it is moving forward.
get
They already
future
have
EMTs.
people in that now, so.
Well, to kind of piggyback on what Britt said, we do have some funds as a town that can be utilized if people want to take the course. But we need to know it and have to reach out to either probably one of the council members or Erin, or talk to one of the EMTs about how they do this. But we do have some funding. We have the fundraiser coming up again in September. So for people looking like, I can't do it in July, but I might be able to do it later in the fall or in the winter, you know, get a hold of us and let us know you're interested so that we can look at our budget and try to propose.
At least put you on the list so that as we start to develop new opportunities that we know in advance, it's nice to know like, hey, we're putting out this opportunity, not just based on what we think we know, but there's actually an interest.
So could you also work on the idea of these kids that when they go home, that they could respond and be in the position that still, could they shadow? Like, is there a shadowing program that the county could do?
If they're under the age of 18 and in the schools program, we're very limited. If they're over the age of 18 and in the schools program, then we do have some options.
But what about if they're over 18 and want to just shadow for a while and see if they want to go?
They could do that, yeah. We do have a ride along. Yeah.
You do.
So that's,
To the people that are wondering if they want to do it.
Well, Jeremy, this is really helpful because I know there's been a lot of questions and misinformation. So thanks for correcting some of us giving misinformation. Really appreciate it. And again, reach out to somebody on the council or an EMT or let us know you're interested. We'll try to push to get some people.
our goal is to provide, continue doing what we've always done, but make sure we have no intentions of shutting anything down, cutting anything, lengthening response times, any of those things. All of those things are, just not true. We have no intentions but to make it better, not do anything that pulls us backwards.
No, the information is really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if any of you ever have any questions, these guys have my number,
We can
or you
find.
can call 911.
During the daytime hours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. Have a good day. Well,
Thank you.
right back.
I will.
So
That was I can get it to her.
thank you.
Bye, guys.
Moving to number 1, which is a review and vote on policies, contracts and memberships for the Bluff Community Center, Fire Mesa Kitchen, the Pavilion. Then a discussion vote on labor policies for rentals, and then a discussion vote on purchase of chairs for rent. So I'm going to turn this over to Maria Collins.
Based on the recording from last week, you can hear me clear across the room, so it's fine. Put it by the quiet people. Thank you for putting me back on your agenda. I have a smaller list this time of questions that I have for you, so hopefully we can continue moving along and meet through the agenda. So the first thing, or one of the things on there, we have the chair purchase. I know that this was a discussion, so to refresh your memory, we were talking about purchasing some chairs that could potentially be used for rent under the pavilion, under the Fire Mesa Kitchen Pavilion. I looked it up today. They are $27.98 per chair at Home Depot. It's the same like squishy ones that Bears Partnership as well as Recapture Lodge have. So thoughts on purchasing chairs and potentially a quantity. We have about 100 plus of these folding cushioned and about, for just frame of reference, and that's about 40. I think
I mean, how many are you thinking?
that's like 30.
How many are you thinking?
And their use would be, think of, like, when would we use them? Like when somebody rents the pavilion, they take those chairs out there, or like would use those instead of these,
Right. That could be something, they could be the chairs that could be rented out for
instead of.
removing from the property even. So if that's the case, if it's being rented out, I'd say probably 100. If it's just for the pavilion, I'd say 50.
What if we started with 50 and see how it went? I mean, that's a lot of chairs. That's a good little financial investment too, if they're $30 a chair.
So here's the question, where will we store them?
Yeah.
Shipping container.
Is there room?
I think so.
Well, then that's easier to put them back and
Yeah.
forth too as they get.
I would say if we get those, we should get rid of these. We should get rid of all of the stacking cushioned chairs.
After they all got cleaned by miracle?
Those were
think they
clean.
really-
It was the.
It was easy.
Why would we get rid of these? Because they're very comfortable, they're very comfortable for meetings or whatever.
Okay, okay, we could even move them over to the CCC.
Yeah, I mean, they're more expensive than those
They are.
folded ones and more.
I guess,
comfortable and
yeah.
solid and-
They're clunky and heavy and harder, harder to move.
Well, and that's the advantage of those black ones. is
Right.
that they're easy to transport.
Yeah.
But I think you need to think of the use of them and
Right.
if there's enough demand for it.
Yeah, so how often do you get asked for outdoor chairs?
I'd say that there's probably an outdoor pavilion rental once or twice a year. And it's usually in the fall.
They ask for chairs.
Yeah,
And
I've
they-
actually been asked, I put the word out that we don't rent out tables and chairs, and so I don't get asked that question as much, but in years past, I'd say that was a couple of times a year that I was asked if we would rent out chairs, and then if you look further down in the agenda, there is even a chair request today.
And what about like the arts festival and those kinds of things?
Right. Yeah, I know that they're currently using these, and that's where these end up coming in sometimes with some mud along the
So they do go
along the
outside,
legs.
like for those
Yeah.
events.
They'll end up out there.
You're saying you would just rent the chairs too by themselves?
If that, what's that?
How much would you charge for that? Just for-
We could look it up and just price it in
Yeah,
comparison to what other places rent it for.
yeah. $40 a day? That's what I have for the table and chair rental. But it would require that they pick it up and drop it off. So maybe actually even, maybe let's do that 60, because that would be quite a bit of my time. $60 a day.
Anybody would disagree with getting a chair rental or getting chairs for the rental?
I would just suggest probably to purchase them after July 1st.
Okay.
Oh, no, I want to do them now.
Would you like to have another public hearing on the budget?
Yeah,
I ran a tight budget this year. We were,
yeah. Great job. Yeah, I think that's good after July.
I'll be sending you the email to order them anyway, so
Well,
you can make that
that's-
decision.
I mean, that's like a whole, what,
2 weeks?
2 weeks away. It's not like.
No,
But I think that it'd be roughly $1,500.
Yeah.
And I think the saving of those nice chairs, they're heavy, that they're nice.
Mhm.
And these folding ones, they're nice, and these just wouldn't leave the building.
I like it.
It would be helpful, I think, of community service.
Yeah.
Then we'll need a motion.
Motion to purchase 50 folding chairs for rental and outdoor use at the community center.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
So moving right along. Cash acceptance. I know that this was something that came up last week. I have not had time to look up cash acceptance in other areas and the legality of it. Anyone else?
Why don't we just table that to work session?
Also was a cost to replace column. I removed the cost to replace on the contract for public and private events. I guess this kind of falls in with the cash acceptance because I was also in the Fire Mesa Kitchen membership. I also have a cost to replace. And I think that one's a little bit easier to maintain because it is a consistent use and there could be more consequences if you do damage something. It could be you can't use the kitchen until it's replaced, or it doesn't have to be that extreme, but it has to be replaced within 30 days or else your membership is paused or something. So if no one disagrees, I'll I'll ask Josie to continue on a cost to replace column on our inventory list, just coming up with what things cost, you know, so that things are maintained. The AV by request only and stored. The discussion last week was where do we store it? My thought is just storing it in room 2, an office 2, when a rental is occurring and they have not requested the audio visual equipment because it's small enough and I can move it back out here in time for the town meetings. Another thing for thoughts discussion, storage of dry food and kitchenwares in the Fire Mesa kitchen. So one idea last week was maybe it's a perk that after you've been there for a year, then you are allowed to actually start renting a cabinet for dry storage as well as dry food storage as well as kitchenwares, or we can keep it as there is, you are not allowed.
I would prefer it be the same, that it not change, in part because we do have to treat everyone the same. And you can say to someone, well, if you've done this for a year, then you could rent out a cabinet. But if, you know, things like that are misconstrued. The other thing is sometimes things get a little bit lax in the kitchen, and this to me would make that happen more often. So that's my opinion.
I would respectfully disagree. But I think it's a nice perk. If they've been there a year, they've been good renters, instead of having to haul that stuff, because there's wear and tear when you're packing and moving and doing all that stuff in and out too, that if they're there a year and they're still using it, seems to me like making one of those cupboards accessible to them, not to where the people that rent it can still get to all the equipment and all of the stuff, but to have it there. I think it's a great idea.
When things are air dried, which, you know, they have to be, I think it would be, people could mix things. People could lose equipment.
But isn't that part of the list of what's still in there and whatnot?
The last time I had to open the kitchen for a renter, there were a lot of things in the dish drainer air drying, and they hadn't put them away. And so we were renting to a really large group that was going to be using the kitchen and all kinds of things. And I had no idea if that belonged to someone, to our member, if it was part of our stuff. I think it's very confusing.
I think the easy way around that is if it's left there in the drainer, it goes into the community use stuff. And next time they're there, they'll put it in their locker. Otherwise, it's donated to the community supply.
I'm making a note, if there is a rental, the air dryer, that you must come in before the rental and put the things away.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, because things must be air dried, but then it must be cleaned up before that rental. That's part of making sure that the kitchen is accommodating to everyone.
But like if, you know, like Linda covered for you, I guess, one of the times, but if you're just there, it would take you 2 minutes to put stuff on the shelf and be gone. I don't want to add to your workload, but if you got to go open it anyway, it's once they're dry, they just go away pretty quick.
And the cabinets are all labeled.
Well, you know where they go.
Right.
It's easy right now because we only have one shift. Let's say we have 3 that a couple other businesses either start at or want or need to use it because something's broken in their business. I mean, I just think it could become very confusing.
We could reconsider at that point if we have a big demand.
Okay. I don't want this to go on for too long, so we can keep this one as, I'm going to ask our members to sign a new contract because they are only good for a year and theirs expired in May. So I will make the updates, or I will make the updates that I have done in red and keep it as no storage unless you guys decide to change that. And we'll revisit in a year.
I think as far as storage, the refrigerator is still a problem if they leave food there. Not a problem, but if it were to be like allowed to leave all your stuff there, that becomes more problematic because when you do rent it, then it's all got to go to the trash basically.
Totally.
So I think the cold stuff and frozen stuff needs to just come and go.
Yeah.
But the other, I don't see what's wrong.
So make the changes that we have and then
Yeah.
is everybody okay with the changes other than the changing the storage? I think the storage thing is something that require, for me, at least would require more thinking about. I know how I store things. I'm just putting myself in the place of having a membership and pretty soon I'd be leaching into other areas.
But they're locked.
I would be leaching into other areas. I would be leaving things on the cupboard. I would be leaving things in
Then
the
you get
pantry.
food.
I'm just saying.
But do we boot? I mean,
Right.
in reality, do we kick people out when they don't follow the rules? No, necessarily.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, let's leave that one and go back and revisit it, but thanks for your work on all of that.
Thanks for all your input.
We still had the section on
Oh, yes.
the waiver.
Yes.
Right, so I guess my comment is a question, like, what are we trying to accomplish with our rentals? What is the purpose of renting it at all?
It's a service to the community.
Cover costs off for some
Some
costs of
operation, yeah,
is the main thing.
I mean, we have to pay Malia to be here to let people in, check it, do all of that kind of stuff. We inevitably spend lights and air conditioning or heat or, and I don't think we can charge a whole lot for a rental.
No, and cleaning, cleaning on top of that.
Cleaning supplies.
And if you don't have a charge, I think you're going to have more people who say, oh, I want to use the community center in 6 months. And then they get to the day before that they said they wanted to do it. It was a popular date and Malia turned other people down. And then they go, oh, whoops, I decided I don't want it. I mean, I kind of liken it to getting a hotel room. If I have to put something in for a hotel room, I'm more likely to actually think about the fact that that date's coming up versus, oh, I booked that room and there's no penalties for me to cancel, so I'll just cancel.
And that's, I thought about that too. And what my solution to that would be before it goes on the calendar, and certainly before you open it up to anybody, is you've got to pay the cleaning deposit or the cleaning fee. And on our chart or our agreement, it says the cleaning fee is non-refundable. And so if you have paid the cleaning fee before it goes on the calendar, that kind of books your spot. You don't get that back unless you cancel, say, 30 days out. Then maybe you could give it back to them. But I would say it's probably not refundable one way or the other. And then the 30 days out, if they don't cancel and they're a no-show, like the river trips, you book all your trips and you block everybody else out. If you do that, then you're not renting. You're off the list for renting.
So you want us to get rid of the fee completely or reapproach which fees we're waiving?
Yeah, I think which ones are waived, because we got grants. We get grants because we're serving the community. But are we?
So you're comfortable with there being a fee?
I think the cleaning fee,
Just the cleaning
just the
fee? or
cleaning
the
fee, and the cleaning fee should cover the cleaning because they have to clean up and it will cover the cleaning fee plus enough padding to cover coming in and doing it. And it's a service to the community.
So
And our community is a wider, like if you're an 84512 zip code, be able to book it.
I'm just trying to figure out exactly make sure I know what we're talking about. You're saying you want to get rid of rental fees, period, and it not be a matter of if we waive it down, but get rid of the rental fee period for the community center and only charge a cleaning fee.
If you're in the 84512 area code or zip code, in the zip codes, if you're in the 84512 zip code and you have an event that's for the community, you know, because otherwise it's like, well, you know, because we have a variety of things that people use it for. They use it for the parties. And I was thinking about that, Lily. I meant to ask you to tell us like how many were parties, how many were political, how many were in 501c3s, you know, like a list, you know, because I know we had 4 funerals. They all paid top dollar. They paid the $400 each, which came right out of the Native community. So that's what I'm wondering is like, well, why does anybody get it free? Either we need to charge everybody, or if you're within the 84512, then you can use it for the cleaning fee. So the local 501c3 or the local, you know, funerals, like to put the funerals, for example, like St. Christopher sponsored a couple, but not in time to get the paperwork right. So they have to pay anyway. But if you say it has to be through a 501c3, what if somebody's not affiliated with a church and wants to have their funeral there? That's not fair either. And I just think that we do enough grant writing and everything else to say that this is a big community service and it's something that we can serve the community with. But I think it needs to be enough and enough to where you, once you reserve it, you're solid, or you lose that money.
So what grant money are you referring to specifically that services this building and the Fire Mesa kitchen?
Any of it, the parks. What about the parks one? What about our pickleball and stuff?
The grants?
Didn't we get a grant to do the playground?
Yeah, we just
To do the playground.
I think that what Lou is saying is that we're saying that we're doing all of these things with the community center and these grants.
And the old school and stuff. It's because we're Bluff, but we serve a bigger community. Our community is not just our 200 people doing Bluff. And so like saying that it's available for roller skating or it's available for basketball, is it? Like, how would somebody go about getting a key to get in for that kind of thing? So that's why I say I have more questions than I have.
And so I'm going to suggest, I threw it out to everybody, that we do a work session the 23rd or the 24th. And it looked to me like the 24th most of us could do. Let's take that waiver piece, give it some thought if we need more information about how the rent is broke down. But I'm going to say, I believe we need to charge a fee, but that's just me, but let's give everybody time to.
And it could be, that was my, it's like charge everybody or don't charge anybody, you know, one or the other. And I did try to, I know like Red Mesa, they rent theirs out for graduations and things. My routes didn't quite get a straight answer, so I don't know how much they charge. It could be this cleaning fee amount, or it could be the 500 or 400 that we charge, but.
If we could, for the work session to talk about this, we could get like the cost of running that says a rental and then like what we make back on it. You know what I mean? How many we waived.
And then, yeah, you know, just that little lineup. And then the other thing that I asked when we were doing the budget, this whole community center is, we bring in 1% of our budget, which that's why it's like, how much do we say, hey, this is a great asset, let's share it with the community, or do we really need to have, like, I'm sure it's not easy to collect on these things. And
Let's table this. Can everybody do the details?
Can you remind me what day the 24th is, since I don't
it's a
have my
Tuesday,
telephone.
it's next Tuesday.
With 4 p.m.
Yeah, 4 works,
Yeah,
yes.
4 would be-
Okay, let's
Keep
just,
it in case.
Yeah, it's like, it's Tuesday after 4, I'm fine.
Okay, let me make sure I'm gonna be able to deliver what you're requesting. A cost of running the community center as a rental and the amount that we're charging.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
like, just
an
to see what
average.
we're.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we going over, we go under?
And is it necessary for it to cover itself or is it a service?
So we know.
That's what we have to decide.
So we know the
You
numbers.
also want me to get the breakdown of party, political, 501c3? Okay.
It would be good.
And then I'll also look up Red Mesa chapter, what they charge.
Yeah, Red Mesa and Mexican Water, it should be somebody at those two that would tell us that.
Do you have what you need, Malia?
I think so. If there's anything else, or if you have any questions or want to talk about it, please let me know. I'm happy to chat about procedures, cost, how I do it.
Okay.
And I work with Malia a lot on it, and she's doing a terrific job. It's going really well. It increases every year. So I'm looking forward to the meeting basically, but really.
And it could be that it would, increase more use, but is that a bad thing?
Right. I'm curious what the use was before COVID, because I don't know what the numbers were, because it has increased ever since I've been here, and I don't know if it's just getting back to what it was before COVID.
So we might be able to look historically at what BSA did, so.
Just
just remind
having
me
a
of that.
consistent point of contact and that kind of thing is, and that's why I say it's available.
Yeah.
People will come.
Right.
Okay, let's move to number 2, Cooperative Cultural Center asbestos grant, next step discussion and possible vote on asbestos mitigation. Okay,
Take off community center, put on project manager. Hello. So this is an agenda item to talk about the CCC. I had a meeting with, just a quick little update. I had a meeting with Deborah from Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, Ann and I met with her on Friday. And we are going to actually do some reallocations on our grant budget. And so with that, I am figuring out numbers, going to submit that, going to let everyone take a look at it if you'd like. Trying to figure out exactly how we're going to spend our money by December so that we can hopefully apply for more funding next summer.
That the appetite to extend the grant was not there.
No, it was there. To do an extension is possible, but it makes more sense
Okay.
in order for us to reallocate because the project, because it's the same project and it wouldn't decrease our chances for getting more funding next year by us spending it on, for example, windows and floors or whatever it is we decide.
yes,
But
so to kind of piggyback on what Malia is saying, if we don't spend the money, we don't get to apply
right,
in June or July, whenever that date is. And so when we were talking, both options are available. Malia will work both options, whatever one is saleable to the higher power is the one we're going to take, but we're going to start with the reallocation to push the money.
No, that makes good sense to me.
yeah.
Just
And our
as long as
architects,
we're not to lose it in
right,
December.
right. Our architects might be a little happy and engineers might be a little happier with us too if we can actually start on some construction too. And we're not like, okay, thanks for the plans. That's all we got. So on that note, I have been discussing asbestos with Steve McClure, the man that did the testing the first time. And we do still have 2 places, according to the elementary asbestos management plan. There are 2 more spaces that we need to test. One of them being the ceiling in the mechanical room. And then the second is the undercoating of all of the sinks. And since some of those sinks are going to be coming out, we need to get those tested and also start talking mitigation. And then also the same thing, because that we're going to be getting a new HVAC system, we do need to also start talking about management of the ceiling there. And I am hopeful that we're going to get this EPA grant back because there is a class action suit that is being submitted in the next couple of weeks, and fingers crossed that they are going to give money back to anyone who has drawn down funds. And I am hoping that we can have asbestos mitigated before we get that back to potentially avoid a quality assurance project plan. So my question for you, council, is may I go ahead and contact Steve, the asbestos tester, and he would also bring his mitigation friend and go ahead and start that process? This would not be able to be funded through a grant right now. So is the council willing? I'm going to just throw out about 20 grand because I don't know what it's going to cost to start working on asbestos, or do you want to wait and we put it into this GOEO reallocation?
So is it the 20,000 for the testing and the mitigation?
I would say testing is probably going to be maybe less than $5,000 because what we paid was like 3. And so I'm hoping I'm shooting way over, but I don't want to come in under. So this mitigation.
Could we vote to do the testing and then look at what the testing shows for the mitigation?
For sure.
But what is the process when you said they would come down? Do they come down? Can they test it right then, or is it a send off to the lab? So they'd have to make 2 trips here and that.
Well, we already know that we have asbestos in the floor tiles as well as the baseboard mastic. So it might be that he starts to come up with a little bit of a plan for us for how we can mitigate that. Because part of this reallocation for GOEO is I'm wondering if we should go ahead and cover the floor, get the walls insulated and start on the walls so that when we get this EPA grant back, we can just continue on and asbestos has been mitigated.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but I kind of agree with Ann.
Yeah.
If we do the testing,
Mhm.
and then once we have that tested, then we'll know the whole project and they don't come mitigate parts and then later have to come back.
Yeah, and it could be with the GOEO grant that's able to be reconfigured. I think we should also look at USDA because they may have some funding if we haven't specifically looked at USDA. Because that might be something that they would help fund.
For asbestos specifically?
Asbestos mitigation.
Yeah, mitigation.
Okay.
We don't want to put it in the building.
Yeah. But we need to say that we, I mean, rather than we're saying it's not for asbestos testing, it's for mitigating the existing asbestos.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can take a look in the next, whatever, at the USDA and see what might be out there. They have a lot of programs.
Get a motion.
Motion to do that.
Yeah, so, motion to approve asbestos testing at CCC as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. I'm looking at the time, and since I did the agenda prior to something that maybe we want to do a work session, I'm wondering if we should just take number 3, review and discussion of the Bluff committees, which include active transportation, roads, playground, sanitary, design review, and then that ongoing discussion of how many do we need, what are requirements and bylaws, and put that onto the work session on the 24th.
I was going to suggest that anyway, because
Thank
it's a work session sort of topic. It was on the last one.
Yeah. Perfect. I just moved it. Then
Maybe we want to, Erin just stepped out on a phone call. So.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull.
Can you update us on elections with that?
I think I can. I'm gonna skip on 4. Everybody remind me I skipped this. So the update on Bluff's 2025 election and a need for volunteers. I thought we would have by the end of last week, we reworked memorandum of understanding from San Juan County on the election costs, and of course we didn't get it. I think that might be because Landing has to have a primary, and San Juan County is probably trying to adjust numbers to accommodate Landing's need and try to look at Monticello and Bluff and what we actually need. With that being said, as soon as we get the contract, we'll bring it to you to take a look at. That will help us to determine, since we don't need a primary and we have some time here, whether or not we want to run our own election and give it a try when it's a simple, about as simple as we're going to get election to see how it works. Or do we want to go and enter into a contract with San Juan County? But the second piece is we are going to need volunteers for San Juan County has said that they've always come down and done informational days. I've never seen that happen. I don't recall it. It's possible they did, and I just didn't understand they were here in the community center giving out election information. But now they're going to do it. I believe they want to do it three times before the election, maybe 2. But I'd like to see us use volunteers versus paying for that, and somebody being here for 2 hours to hand out information about elections. And we're still trying to nail that down, which will also be probably a part of the MOU. And then we will need volunteers for poll watchers to kind of cut that cost to help out at the polls on the actual date. But again, now that we don't have a primary, unless we get a write-in candidate, we're probably good to push this out until we get the MOU.
But it wouldn't matter whether we got a write-in candidate or not. Does it?
Well, one
Doesn't-
wouldn't do it, but 2 could if it was in the council. It would.
It would make it a primary?
No, it wouldn't make it a primary. It's what we need for the election.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we wouldn't need a primary, right? We would not. We just go.
So
straight
it's
to the
still
primary.
the same election that we need to
Yeah.
manage for, no matter how many
Exactly.
write-ins declare.
Right. We still need to manage it.
I thought I misunderstood.
No, I probably misspoke. It's been a weird day. So if everyone's okay, we'll just wait till we get the MOU and see kind of where we are. But I'm sure they're working on how they accommodate Blanding's primary cost wise. And
We skipped over 4 and went to 5. We'll go back to 4.
Whenever you have time, you can do it at the end.
so is Josie,
Dorothy's not going to be in this evening. I am prioritizing her on some other things. If you have time to go back to 4, it'll
Yep,
be
let's
just
go.
a very
Let's
quick
go
update.
Yeah.
So update on dark sky announcement. We were reviewing the announcement that was put together for Dark Sky International. So as we talked about, they have to put their announcement out before we can place any announcement out. And so looks like that was officially submitted to Dark Sky International. We're still waiting to hear back, but it looks pretty good that that will go out on June 25th. And then at that time, we will be able to kind of, showcase what we have done. And the intention is to do the town website landing page. Later on, we'll talk about .gov transition. We've also got Josie working on like kind of a 1-page flyer that we could utilize as the announcement. And would be interested in working with business owners of Bluff to, purpose of the flyer would be, hey, Town of Bluff's got this designation, but also promoting the event taking place in November. And so Josie and I will be reaching out to kind of get that flyer that we can kind of post around. We're still finalizing what we, the town, would put out, since our audience is going to look a little different from Dark Sky International. But of course, we wait until after the 25th to put that out. But I think we've got a pretty similar look to what the committee had put together for International Dark Sky release.
I think it would be really nice if we could, I don't know what the cost would be, but to mail it to all of the box holders that we've got this designation, and it's something to be proud of.
Postcard maybe. Oh, I should, you remind me.
Postcard or
I have a
brochure.
Postcard from a Colorado group. They're from Breckenridge, whichever group that was. It was quite cool. They just had some stars on it. It was just a nice little postcard that said, would be cheaper mailing, or I have them. So I can bring you a copy.
I did postcards when I did the write-in, and it was not very much.
Yeah, I don't think mine was very much
Yeah,
either.
way less than I expected. So I think that's a good idea. I like the postcards of, if Josie can take on one more design,
I will let her know.
Those aren't hard to do either, Shutterfly or whatever.
and if there's anything else we want to throw on in there, like, remember elections are in November, some stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you want to couple that? So she's also working on that informational brochure regarding the dark sky ordinance. Would you want to couple a mailer with that, or would you want to just kind of prioritize that, here's the announcement, kind of just like a simple announcement, and then have educational materials available for later on.
That would be my preference, is just keep it simple, one message. And then one thing that I noticed on her brochure, and I think would be good on this, would be the QR code. That would take you to the ordinance or to our page of the website that talks about our dark sky. There's a little QR code on the postcard could give you all that other information.
I'd like it to be a little bit more celebratory, and I think that if we send out, a copy of the ordinance, that it,
No, I wouldn't send.
no, but I'm just saying that it might focus people on not being so celebratory of it. I think it's a great
We can maybe do
accomplishment,
that like,
achievement.
on the brochure.
Yeah, see, I'm picturing the link would go to something on our website.
Yeah.
All about dark
Yeah, no, I
skies.
think that's great.
Designation.
Yeah.
The designation, plus if you want to go from the designation to the ordinance from there, but first you would just get it to there and see, and it would tell you the parties and things coming up.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, not putting the QR code on the announcement, just on the brochure.
Well, I think if I were going to do it, I would put a really cool, catchy thing on the front of the postcard, and on the back,
Oh,
on
I
one
see.
side, the
Put a
address, on the
QR
other side, the QR code.
Yeah,
That would
I'm
take you
just
to
making
our
sure,
website.
I'm just making sure we're not talking about the announcement itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would be the time frame that you would want those postcards to go out?
I think if we can time it with as soon as, well, I don't know, I mean, as soon
It'll
as we
take
can
a minute
announce
to
it.
get a.
My issue is that with our website changing, it is supposed to redirect from .org to .gov. But at this point in time, we are unsure if the actual website is going to transition smoothly or if we're going to have to rebuild it. And so I would really like to have that answer before I put any links.
Then maybe just
So,
do the
yeah,
announcement, and
just
on
do
the
an
back,
announcement.
just keep it simple with the address, and just on the front have the announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the announcement's already, what we talked about last week is we all had a cutoff date of getting our changes on the announcement. That's come and gone, so.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because I'm gone for the next 3 days, and like if
No.
Josie brings something together and we have to get it up to the printer and everything, we could probably do something by like the end of next week, early next
It doesn't
following week.
to be that fast, and I think that if, like, I can see that it could be a postcard that we could sell at our businesses, like we could buy them, a chunk of them from the town and have it there, and Bluff as a dark sky thing, so that everybody in town knows, that we could also distribute that way if you made a cool postcard.
For direction for Josie, would you like to have a photograph or like a graphic as the main thing?
I'd say have her pull up a couple options, do 2 or 3 mock-ups, and
I do have other projects that she is diligently working on for us, so let me see
I
what
don't
we
think
can
there's a
pull
huge
together.
rush. I don't think it has to come out on the 25th.
Okay.
My thinking.
Her internship also ends on July 11th.
Yeah,
I have
before that.
before then. Okay.
Darn
Okay. Okay. All right. I can take that feedback, and I like that idea, and we'll get it out. And then I think she's almost finished with flyers too, so that maybe we can just scale down into a postcard.
I think that this is something that's been delegated to you to prioritize, so
I will work on that.
you prioritize your time.
And on that, thinking of the little postcard, I have that Bluff Celebrates the Stars, that old poster from the kids. Did you ever figure out who was the artist? Because I think we should take advantage of that super cool poster. If we did that, we could just shrink that right onto a postcard and it'd be done.
If you can show it to me, I might be able to figure out who it was.
It had twin rocks, had a little, the star looked like a little Pluto coming through, but I've got it hanging in the lobby, and
Sarah
people
might
love it.
remember who did that more than I, because
Okay, so
Put it
both
out
of,
on something and
both
say,
yeah, think about it and then get back with Erin and Josie.
but is there some Facebook site that we could put a picture of it and say, hey, anybody claim this art?
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving us,
I don't,
because right now We
Yeah,
are
I wouldn't
at,
go that far.
we are at 5:13, and in order to try to finish this agenda, let's hold that for the two of you to figure out or whatever.
I'll see if I can pull up records, Lou, but I would say the kids probably won't. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, number 6, update on design review committee. Was there any meeting this last week, Malia, Jen?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Britt. We talked about, oh, you weren't there. It was me and Malia. That's right. We talked about asbestos. We talked about the possibility of reallocating go-ed funds. So I feel like we've really kind of already covered what we talked about DRC last week.
okay. Then an update and vote on Bluff's building department and modification to employment contracts. Erin.
I was approached by the building department employees wherein we're not quite to the evaluation period where we're going to formally sit down to talk to them about like how things are going, how processes are going and things like that. But it was made clear that the percentage of work being performed by the building permit technician versus the building official was skewed towards the building permit technician. And so that role had been allocated $6,000 annually. So $500 a month. And the building permit technician had been allocated $12,000 annually or $1,000 a month. And we pay it out, every 2 weeks. And so because the building permit technician has been taking on, it seems like, more of the work, they had actually already approached the building official to split the salaries equally. And so what they would like to propose, and I would retroactively ask you to approve. So there was a payroll cycle that was completed where we split their salaries evenly. But what I'm asking would be an amendment to, based on our discussion today, I would make whatever changes you'd like to the contract language. But what they're asking for is an amendment to their salaries to evenly split the $18,000 between them at this point in time. So $9,000 annually to each of them to better compensate the building permit technician based on the work that she's been performing and the number of hours that she's putting in compared to the building official. Now, the building official has been doing inspections. I know he has, because he inspected my property. But I know that Kristen Bushnell has been putting in a lot more in terms of administrative time. And so I spoke with both parties separately. They both expressed interest. From my perspective, this is not from their perspective. From my perspective, this is another case of, in the perfect world, everyone would get compensated, to the biggest extent that we can. But I think knowing that we originally signed on with the building department at $18,000, it makes sense at this point in time to just split that salary in half between the two, open to discussion and comments and feedback.
So my comment is that I did tell Erin to go ahead and do it for the last pay cycle because they were both, my concern has just been the obvious, like, are we being approached by one person or both people? And Erin clarified that, and I said, just go ahead and do it. And then if we vote differently, we'll just vote differently.
Does it retroactively go into effect since we started paying them?
No, it would be I would propose from this point forward. In none of my conversations had they indicated that it would be retroactive. If you voted to not approve it, though, we would retroactively adjust this last pay cycle that just went out last week.
No, that seems fine. And then you still have it on the plan to look at it at 4 months to see.
Yes, we will arrange a full sit down and
What
see
our
how it's
options are now that we're here then.
Could we reevaluate it in a year, how it's going?
4 months.
Yeah, so we originally said that we would evaluate, I think it was at the 120-day mark, just like how the position is going. It was made clear to me, at least, that we would probably be talking about salary as well. But I think that we would continue to evaluate it, like, as we look at the budget. If we are, not seeing building permits coming up. We should be seeing building permits coming, applications coming. I want to remind folks, go look at the ordinance. But I think we probably a continual evaluation every couple months to just kind of see how it's going. The building permit technician does track all of her hours. And I do look at those, and it is it can be very variable, but realistically, I think maybe with a few more months of data, we could come back to council and say, this is kind of what it's shaking out to from like a hourly basis. But I think we're still a little early in. A year might be too long, but probably just something we'll continue to look at over the next couple months. Would be my recommendation.
And we talked, and Jen was the one that convinced me, was that it's a service to the community, because it's hard to track down your own inspectors, and then they put Bluff as a priority and they take a load off planning and zoning and so on.
So we need a vote to retroactively apply it to the last pay period going forward or not.
So, motion to retroactively modify Bluff's building department employment contracts. 50/50 split.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Number 8, this is more of just a reminder to people that the closed burn season started June 1st, goes through October 31st. And if you're in an unincorporated area, you need to get the permit through the local, fire warden or the county, and here it's something different, which now I've already forgotten what I wrote there. But do not, in an incorporated area, it would follow what our notifications are, which would be either the fire department chief or someone with authority to let them know that that you're going to be burning.
Yeah, so what the fire chief had asked is that he would be contacted as well as the dispatch. And Josie's also working on putting together an informational flyer so that we can post around town and have on our website as well, with those 2 phone numbers and the procedures.
That's a good link, the fire tab. I want to burn.
That's one of my most frequent
Yes.
phone calls that
Yeah.
I get at the town is that question. So we're just gonna post it.
And just to, what they're talking about is when you're burning your weeds, when you're burning a big pile and you're burning the fence line, or you're burning a field off, those kind of things, that's what needs permit.
Number 9, Bluff Waterworks meeting on June 11th, 2025. So who wants to cover that? It was standard, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I was just saying, it went as normal. We did discuss, the water hiccup, I don't know what to call it. And kind of some of the lessons that were learned with that, and the remediations that are in process for fixing something like that in the future. And I forgot to look up the last part of Brown and Associates because I can't remember their name either. I meant to look that up and I forgot.
So Jackie Warren the public comments went on for a while, which was helpful, because people had questions because of the mechanical failure of the water tanks. And she was volunteering to help with setting up a website. And since then she's been looking into it, but she was volunteering to be a volunteer to help them with website, with letting people know, with other things that they might need.
Yeah, I think the lessons everybody walked away with is like having a website. getting that developed and
Right.
figuring out how you do a blast out
Right.
of one nature or another if this were to ever happen again. Or there was some other kind of issue, but it was a good meeting. I am a little disappointed for the number of people in the public, for the number of people who called the town and wanted the town to be doing something. And again, there were only 2 other people that came to the meeting, other than the usual 2 of us, Linda and myself. Jen, of course, is always there. But it's like the town doesn't run the water. And next time around, I'm taking advice and I'm saying very nicely to the call, please don't ask us, call BWW and put the phone down. I'm not wasting half the day at taking calls and then having the public not even come to ask the questions. It's
Well,
not our job.
that's just an indicator that it's just like the roads, it's headed to a department, but right now it's still separated and you don't know who called.
Well, you do know who to call. We all know the.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
No, everybody in town knows who to call in. You know, I mean, that's been one of the constant complaints with, you know, I mean, Bluff Waterworks does have a meeting every single month and we get a lot of, you know, rumors and complaints in the public or whatever, but nobody officially ever brings it to a meeting.
It's easier to complain. So I wanted to add, because I talked to it about it a couple of other meetings, I did put I want to call it a flag, it's some other word, but anyway, a marker on the hydrant there.
Right.
I haven't seen it in the dark. It's not like you don't really see it in the day, really. I mean, if you were driving towards it, you probably would. I have forgotten to look to see how it looks in headlights, but it's about, you know, the hydrant's here and it comes up 4 feet, I believe, and it's got reflectorized tape on it for a trial.
Well, and Gary did say that he was going to look into some options with that, in regards to the fire department, and no one brought anything to the meeting last week
Well, that
about.
one's,
I think everybody was open for exploration and thought it was a good idea, so I think they're just waiting for costs.
well, that one, we just need to see if that one,
Yeah.
it comes on and off the hydrant real easily, so anyway, it wasn't very expensive. The one that I looked at, there was only 25, it cost 150 to get it here or something. So I canceled that. So this one was like $40 or something, but it's pretty stout. It has a big metal loop on it that you hook onto the fire hydrant. And it's easy just to take off. If you gotta open it, you gotta open that anyway. So you open it up, pull that off, and so anyway, take a look at it. Get some more of.
Well, and as to what Ann was saying, I don't necessarily think that that's something that we as the town, I think it's great to bring it to the water boards as you did. And I think that that's up to the fire department and the town to initiate those purchases. And
I know, see, and that goes back to that, since it's not under the town, it's our infrastructure, so we need to protect our infrastructure. Do we need to keep track of that stuff? Or is it Waterworks thing that they buy them, so that needs to be figured out.
That's a good question. So the next report on San Juan County's local emergency planning committee meeting on June 11th, 2025. This is this is kind of an interesting committee that I sit on that somebody is going to be replacing me on. So how it's defined is it plays a role in preparing for and responding to chemical emergencies, doing emergency planning, developing emergency response plans, reviewing them, and informing the public about hazardous materials. And so there are a couple of interesting trainings that I wanted to draw everyone's attention to. And one is there's going to be some Red Cross shelter training for this committee. So if anybody's thinking that they want to replace me come January, this would be a good one to go to. It's September 10th, and it will be a hands-on training. And I can get more information to you if you're interested in going. I'll definitely plan on going. But I also sent out the San Juan County Emergency Management Plan draft that we started working on. Well, we it's Tammy Gallegos who's basically putting together with approval of this committee. So it's really an important committee for someone to pick up. It meets, I believe, every other month or every 3 months.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you feel like this is something that you could delegate to somebody off of the council, or do you think it needs to be like what we do with Michael? He's not on the council, he does roads. Is it more of a fire department person that would maybe come and report to town, or do you think it's important that somebody from the town of Bluff is on it?
I think it's important that someone from the town council be on it. And the reason is because this includes the stakeholders are public health, fire department, police department, sheriff's department. There's probably 20 different stakeholder types. And we are the only town that someone from the council regularly attends it. And it's very helpful to know when the trainings are. It was helpful to Erin, Linda, and myself because we worked on a mitigation plan with the county. And you've got the fire departments already weighing in with their own representatives. I just think it's really important. So,
And Erin, aren't you still our person?
Mhm.
So do you go to these two?
I typically do. I try to. I did not go to the last one.
And see, in my mind, you're a representative of our town.
Yeah, but if that's a way that we can take some load off of here, I don't think that's a bad thing either.
But she's designated as the emergency response person, so she needs to be like, if you're gonna be that person, that you can't really like wait and hear it secondhand from us.
well, I think it's certainly something that as we work through the next couple of months and talk about who's replacing, well, what positions are going to need to be filled and how does that happen come January 6th. We go back to that on that piece. Number 11, discussion of holiday construction, Montezuma material pit application to BLM. Again, I'm going to state my absolute inability to figure out where things are. So I thought I'd throw this on the agenda to see if anybody feels we need to make a comment or weigh in.
Or did you send out what it was, where it was? I didn't think I saw that in.
I don't think it was it in the packet?
It is in the packet. Well,
It's in the
but
packet.
does it have a location? I was trying to find.
There's a
It's got
map.
a map, but it's terrible.
Oh, here it
maps that
is,
they
sorry.
provide.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's really hard to see it.
So, I mean, it's along the river somewhere. It sits outside, Montezuma Creek. It's on the river side of the highway. So it looks like it would be similar to that one that's currently on that road right now.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's,
I was gonna say, I wonder if is it the same one?
I think it's different. I think, just unless it's right there next to it, but it looks like it's up on its own. It's gonna take one of these whole drainage tops. I mean, it's a big one.
But it's
But
across the river.
it's on our, it's on
It's right on the south side of the highway.
the river right.
So does anyone feel a need to respond to this or they're just letting it go without a comment?
I mean, it doesn't seem to have any, it says the only thing there is an old, transmission line. Historically used transmission line. So there's no cultural stuff. It is a big one. It's, let's see,
Is it well,
says they're supposed
first
to.
1 to 2 years of the
Yeah, it
project.
says they're
so.
supposed to mitigate
Mitigate.
after, after all the stuff is sold, all the things are sold.
No, a lot of times when they come in and they do the mitigation, they do a good job of cleaning it up and it looks better than it did to begin with. But
Approximately 88 was for big. With mining.
So it must be, is that the trans,
Would the printed map be of any help?
See, and it's unfortunate because they do that all over where it's too zoomed in, it's not enough.
yeah, it's just a little short
You
little
have to,
left here, but
you have to plug
But
it.
with that big transmission line, it makes me wonder if that's the one that's going out to the solar field.
So I don't think so. I don't think, maybe if we weren't, fighting other battles, but this one's not town.
That's why they get put in the packet for everybody else, so that,
It is nice that we're included, I will say that. At least they're letting us know what's up. Which is kind of cool.
all right, number 12, request by Utah to make a payout for use of the folding chairs for the Bears Ears National Monument. Events that they have July 11th, 12th, and 13th. Janet Sloan emailed me and asked if we would be able to loan them the 30 chairs that are, why did I say, this is interesting. The event is not that date. I must have picked up last year's date is the 24th, 25th, and 26th of July. So ignore, they hadn't changed their website to reflect that. So it's the 24th, 25th, 26th. And those are the chairs in the CCC. They're on a rack that they've used the last 2 years. And they've always brought them back clean and accounted for. So
If we have chairs, then do we not need black chairs?
let's just put it this way. Keep in mind that these were chairs used in an elementary school, probably purchased in 1950. And they're beat up and look like
They're the metal folding chairs.
they're ones that I would personally throw out if they were in this building. Yeah, so
So are those the ones we're okay for them just to borrow? We're not gonna rent them? If we get these brand new chairs, it seems like we should rent them to them and they transport way easier up. I assume they're going up on the hill.
well,
like,
they're
where do we-
asking
because
These are the
specifically,
ones they're asking for.
They just want a free,
yeah, they asked specifically for the metal ones, I say.
the free metal ones and just let them use it.
Yeah.
Is that the question? And we're not
I'm okay
renting
with
the
that.
new ones.
Yeah.
I'm even okay with if they never brought them back. I mean, they really,
Don't say that very loud.
no, they really are. Yeah, but if everyone's okay, I don't think we really need to spend any energy. I'll just tell Janet, yes.
Yeah, because if they're workable, I mean, the same thing, it's hard to get stuff here, it's hard to pay for stuff, it's hard, all that, so they're fine with it.
And Malia, you and I should coordinate that piece. Okay. All right, the one I've been waiting for, discussion regarding the .gov domain transition. Erin?
Yeah, so Sam and I are working on that. It's a little bit more complicated than we hoped, and there is the possibility that we would need to rebuild the website based on, just WordPress is a very challenging building space. And so it is a free tool, so we appreciate that. But if we do need to rebuild it, we will maintain our current website for a little bit longer. So we're waiting to see, we have one piece of data that we need the previous admin to provide to us. And once he's able to do that, it's the individual who originally set up all the accounts. And so he had some personal stuff going on the last couple of days, but we need this one final piece before each of the next steps can be completed. So Sam is working on all of that. The IT team has assured us that all the .org stuff will continue to just forward on to .gov once we do make that transition. So our internal users will not really see a difference. We probably are going to want to, so you can choose to remain as the .org or the .gov, because it's all going to come to you no matter what. It would be my preference that each of you transition to .gov as your primary email. And again, like once that they make that little flip, you really won't see a difference at all. And then for the website, if someone types in www.townofbluff.org, it'll automatically just send them to townofbluffutah.gov. So we're just waiting on a couple more steps. It is definitely a lengthy process. Luckily, Sam is much more, all of the IT things that are going over my head currently, Sam understands, which is fantastic. He is a great guy for the job. I don't even think this was in his original job description, but he's doing a great job.
So are you saying there's a chance that the WordPress might not migrate over?
Correct. So the domain and the registrar
will move over, but the actual like website and website builder might not move over cleanly. And so we will have a better idea once we get that next piece from the original administrator and start moving the domain and everything. It is, just for the public, there might be short intermittent periods where the website is down, like 10 to 15 minutes max. So if you're seeing that, come back soon. If we have an outage longer than that, I'll have Linda send out an email blast so people are aware. But we are going to start try to transition some of these things. And then the website would not just try to transition and disappear. We'd have the backup that we could go to if it doesn't copy correctly.
If it doesn't copy correctly, that's when.
Yeah, no, we will maintain the backup domain until we can confirm that everything has
That was
moved
one of the things
appropriately.
that the companies were offering was build the website, they could be transferred or whatever. Another work about that.
So when you say rebuild it, you won't be able to use WordPress as a possibility?
We would still be able to use WordPress. We just have to rebuild every single page. The pros and cons. We have over 1,700 documents on our website, which is extreme, but we need it because of the amount of documents that we approve and go through. But it would be a lengthy process. Again, like our .gov would be live, our emails will be live, but that actual website might not be. But yeah, and then once it's transitioned, then the interns, plural, are going to work on like refreshing and making things look, more organized and everything. But I don't want them to do that work until we know if it can actually move yet, because it would be. Yeah.
So if you try to move it over and it's not working or becoming a problem, you would bring us those numbers and stuff again.
We'll see. We'll see how much time the interns have.
Because they could, if they run out of stuff, they could start on a rebuild and then just see.
I don't think any of them are going to run out of stuff.
No, we've got a good amount for them. It's been pretty good. But yeah, so we should have more information when we get this particular key a little later this week. And it's my direction to Sam, given that he is far outpacing me in the IT world, that he is able to work on that transition with Galaxy even while I'm out of town, because there's nothing I can do about it. The only thing is he would have to let, council know if it's down, and then he can go from there. But I've walked him through, we walked through that eventually. So, thank you.
I don't want to move.
You don't have to move. It's all going to remain exactly the same, I promise.
Okay. All right, number 14, discussion and vote to pay the bills. Erin.
You also have received the accounts payable, accounts receivable report for this week. A couple routine bills. I did update this later this afternoon, so if you have any items that you had questions about, please let me know. I am recommending to do PTIF transfers back to PTIF because of the amount of cash we currently have sitting in checking for both general checking and roads. And so because the joint account with Utah Denebekea had to get transferred over, we had to get a transfer from PTIF to get everything there the same day. We just had a little bit of excess there that I'd like to move back. And then for the roads checking account, we just received our matching funds through San Juan County to the tune of $26,000. And so since we don't have any immediate roads expenses, I would advise that we move a chunk over there as well.
Is that enough?
Yeah, that'll be in pretty, that's in pretty good shape. I also do have requests to purchase a Geo GPS device. So this is the device that Ann had outlined in her cemetery grant that will help us with sub 6-inch accuracy for our mapping purposes. I have an estimated $3,800, but once we go out and do the full sourcing, we'll have that exact amount, but I am requesting that we be able to get that purchased pretty quickly so our interns can use it.
I guess, okay, so that's for the interns, it's not for the cemetery necessarily, because I thought the cemetery grant was to hire engineers to do that survey.
So the cemetery grant was to do the survey, hire the engineers to do the survey and help with the digitalization. And going forward, we need to be able to
Still
do
need
that.
to do the,
Right. And I wrote that into the grant. So it was the digitalization, engineering, and then the purchase of the equipment. So moving forward, we would be able to have somebody up there knowing exactly where the perimeters are rather than just plunking someone on top of somebody else's gravesite.
I do have the 2 bills from Duffer Waldeck for legal fees, as well as an invoice from Pack a Raft, which is where the fire department is hoping to purchase some supplies. They have not spent, I'll say that, I don't think they've spent any of their 15,000, but I am trying to work with Anthony to try to get it spent by the end of the year. So I would like to just go ahead and do that directly as opposed to doing reimbursement if possible. Any questions?
I do know that they were doing training on the river for rescues and things, and that's what that is it's a backpack path, basically. You get down and to places that you can't necessarily launch from or put in.
So do we need a vote?
Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Any other? It is 5:45.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Planning and zoning meets Thursday, 6:00. A work session?
It's not this Thursday because it's Juneteenth.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
So no meeting? No meeting for July then?
It's
One next Thursday, the 26th.
all right. I'm turning off the recorder.